They will say that human things are fated to decay, and even the perfect state will not escape from this law of destiny. Thus arises timocracy, which is intermediate between aristocracy and oligarchy. The ruler is no longer a philosopher. There springs up among them an extravagant love of gain. Get another man's and save your own is their principle. The next form of government is oligarchy, in which the rule is of the rich only, nor is it difficult to see how such a state arises. The decline begins with the possession of gold and silver. Illegal modes of expenditure are invented, multitude are infected, riches outweigh virtue, lovers of money take the place of lovers of honor, and, in time, political privileges are confined by law to the rich, who do not shrink from violence in order to effect their purposes. Next comes democracy and the democratic man. Men of family often lose their property or rights of citizenship, but the ruling class do not want remedies. They care only for money, and democracy comes into power when the poor are the victors, killing some and exiling some, and giving equal shares in the government to all the rest. The manner of life in such a state is that of democrats. There is freedom and plainness of speech, and every man does what is right in his own eyes. When you condemn men to death, they remain alive all the same. A gentleman is desired to go into exile, and he stalks about the streets like a hero. Observe, too, how grandly democracy sets her foot upon all the fine theories of education, how little she cares for the training of her statesmen. The only qualification which she demands is the profession of patriotism. Such is democracy, a pleasing, lawless, various sort of government, distributing equality to equals and unequals alike. Tyranny springs from democracy, much as democracy springs from oligarchy. Both arise from excess, the one from excess of wealth, the other from excess of freedom. When the people meet, they are omnipotent, but they cannot be brought together unless they are attracted by a little honey, and the rich are made to supply the honey, of which the demagogues keep the greater part themselves, giving a taste only to the mob. Their victims attempt to resist, and so the people have some protector whom they nurse into greatness, and from this root the tree of tyranny springs. The protector, who tastes human blood and slays some and exiles others with or without law, who hints at abolition of debts and division of lands, must either perish or become a wolf, that is, a tyrant. Perhaps he is driven out, but he soon comes back from exile, and then if his enemies cannot get rid of him by lawful means, they plot his assassination. Thereupon, the friend of the people makes his well-known request to them for a bodyguard, and so the great protector, having crushed all his rivals, stands proudly erect in the chariot of state, a full-blown tyrant. In the early days of his tyranny, he smiles and beams upon everybody. He's only come to put an end to debt and the monopoly of land. Having got rid of foreign enemies, he makes himself necessary to the state by always going to war. He is thus enabled to depress the poor by heavy taxes, and so keeps them at work. Then comes unpopularity. Some of his old associates have the courage to oppose him. The consequence is that he has to make a purge of the state, but unlike the physician who purges away the bad, he must get rid of the high-spirited, the wise, and the wealthy. And so the people have jumped from the fear of slavery into slavery, out of the smoke into the fire. Thus liberty passes into the worst form of servitude. In 1085, William the Conqueror ordered the creation of something vast, a record that by its completion would have over 13,000 entries, a document that would not be surpassed in the country until the 19th century. And so there's no doubt that the scribes who compiled the Doomsday Book could certainly have done with some help from our sponsor today. Odoo is an all-in-one management platform offering more than 45 applications, keeping everything centralized and integrated. There's no need to worry about juggling various tools and hoping they'll work together. Instead, with Odoo, you have a quick, seamless experience as the apps communicate together, avoiding errors and saving you time and money. Odoo's interface is intuitively designed, allowing you to adapt easily. You can add applications as your needs evolve. You can build websites, send invoices, track inventory, plan projects, and manage customers, and much more. Odoo is automatically configured based on your location, for example taxes and currency, allowing you to comply with your local regulation. It is ideal for projects of all sizes or managing any business. And you can try out a single app for free, including unlimited hosting and support, or have the full suite of apps for the great monthly price of $24.90. So click on the link below to try Odoo. I shall tell of certain marvels wrought through the agency of art and nature. It is possible that great ships and seagoing vessels shall be made which can be guided by one man, and will move with greater swiftness than if they were full of oarsmen. It is possible that a car shall be made which will move with inestimable speed, and the motion will be without the help of any living creature. Such, it is thought, were the carus falcati which the ancients used in combat. It is possible that a device for flying shall be made such that a man sitting in the middle of it and turning a crank shall cause artificial wings to beat the air after the manner of a bird's flight. Similarly, it is possible to construct a small-sized instrument for elevating and depressing great weights, a device which is most useful in certain situations. For a man may ascend and descend, and may deliver himself and his companions from peril of prison by means of a device of small weight and of a height of 3 fingers and a breadth of 4. It is possible also easily to make an instrument by which a single man may violently pull 1,000 men towards himself in spite of opposition, or other things which are tractable. It is possible also that devices can be made whereby, without bodily danger, a man may walk on the bottom of the sea or of a river. Alexander used these to observe the secrets of the sea, as Ethicus the astronomer relates. These devices have been made in antiquity and in their own time, and they are certain. I'm acquainted with them explicitly, except with the instrument for flying, which I have not seen. Certain physical figurations are especially marvelous, for mirrors and perspective devices can be arranged that one appears many, one man an army, and the sun and moon as many as we wish. We may read the smallest letters at an incredible distance. We may see objects, however small they may be, and we may cause the stars to appear wherever they wish. So it is thought Julius Caesar spied into Gaul from the seashore. Infinite other things can be made, as bridges over rivers without columns or supports, and machines and unheard of engines. These prophecies will seem strange, almost impossible, yet they have come from the most learned and conservative minds in America. To the wisest and most careful men in our greatest institutions of science and learning I have gone, asking each in his turn to forecast for me what, in his opinion, will have been wrought in his own field of investigation before the dawn of 2001, a century from now. There will probably be from 350 million to 500 million people in America and its possessions by the lapse of another century. Nicaragua will ask for admission into our union after the completion of the Great Canal. Mexico will be next. Europe, seeking more territory to the south of us, will cause many of the South and Central American republics to be voted into the Union by their own people. The American will be taller by from 1 to 2 inches. This increase in stature will result from better health due to vast reforms in medicine, sanitation, food, and athletics. He will live 50 years instead of 35 as at present, for he will reside in the suburbs. The city house will be practically no more. Building in blocks will be illegal. The trip from suburban home to office will require a few minutes only. A penny will pay the fare. Photographs will be telegraphed from any distance. If there be a battle in China 100 years hence, snapshots of its most striking events will be published in the newspapers an hour later. Even today, photographs are being telegraphed over short distances. Photographs will reproduce all of nature's colors. Man will see around the world. Persons and things of all kinds will be brought within focus of cameras, connected electrically with screens at opposite ends of circuits thousands of miles at a span. American audiences in their theaters will view upon huge curtains before them the coronations of kings in Europe or the progress of battles in the Orient. The instrument bringing these distant scenes to the very doors of people will be connected with a giant telephone apparatus transmitting each individual sound in its appropriate place. Thus, the guns of a distant battle will be heard to boom when seen to blaze. And thus, the lips of a remote actor or singer will be heard to utter words or music when seen to move. Ready-cooked meals will be bought from establishments similar to our bakeries of today. They will purchase materials in tremendous wholesale quantities and sell the cooked foods at a price much lower than the cost of individual cooking. Food will be served hot or cold to private houses in pneumatic tubes or automobile wagons. Such wholesale cookery will be done in electric laboratories rather than kitchens. Coal will not be used for heating or cooking. It will be scarce but not entirely exhausted. The Earth's hard coal will last until the year 2050 or 2100. Its soft coal mines until 2200 or 2300. Meanwhile, both kinds of coal will have become more and more expensive. Man will have found electricity manufactured by water power to be much cheaper. Every river or creek with any suitable fall will be equipped with water motors, turning dynamos, making electricity. There will be no streetcars in our large cities. All traffic will be below or high above ground when brought within city limits. In most cities, it will be confined to broad subways or tunnels, well lighted and well ventilated, or to high trestles with moving sidewalk stairways leading to the top. These underground or overhead streets will teem with capacious automobile passenger coaches and freight wagons with cushioned wheels. Subways or trestles will be reserved for express trams. Cities, therefore, will be free from all noises. Trains will run 2 miles a minute normally, express trains 150 miles an hour. To go from New York to San Francisco will take a day and a night by fast express. There will be cigar-shaped electric locomotives hauling long trains of cars. Cars will, like houses, be artificially cooled. Automobiles will be cheaper than horses are today. Farmers will own automobile hay wagons, automobile truck wagons, plows, harrows, and hay rakes. A 1-pound motor in one of those vehicles will do the work of a pair of horses, or more. Automobiles will have been substituted for every horse vehicle now known. The horse in harness will be as scarce, if not scarcer, than the yoked ox is today. Everybody will walk 10 miles. Gymnastics will begin in the nursery, where toys and games will be designed to strengthen the muscles. Exercise will be compulsory in the schools. Every school, college, and community will have a complete gymnasium. All cities will have public gymnasiums. A man or woman unable to walk 10 miles at a stretch will be regarded as a weakling. Fast electric ships crossing the ocean at more than a mile a minute will go from New York to Liverpool in 2 days. The bodies of these ships will be built above the waves. They will be supported upon runners, somewhat like those of the sleigh. These runners will be very buoyant. Upon their undersides will be apertures expelling jets of air. In this way, a film of air will be kept between them and the water's surface. This film, together with the small surface of the runners, will reduce friction against the waves to the smallest possible degree. There will be airships, but they will not successfully compete with surface cars and water vessels for passenger or freight traffic. They will be maintained as deadly war vessels by all military nations. Some will transport men and goods, others will be used by scientists making observations at great heights above the Earth. Giant guns will shoot 25 miles or more and will hurl anywhere within such a radius shells exploding and destroying whole cities. Such guns will be aimed by aid of compasses when used on land or sea, and telescopes when directed from great heights. Fleets of airships, hiding themselves with dense, smoky mists, will float over cities, fortifications, camps, or fleets. They will surprise foes below by hurling upon them deadly thunderbolts. These aerial warships will necessitate bomb-proof forts, protected by great steel plates over their tops as well as at their sides. Huge forts on wheels will dash across open spaces at the speed of express trains of today. They will make what are known today as cavalry charges. Great automobile plows will dig deep entrenchments as fast as soldiers can occupy them. Rifles will use silent cartridges. Submarine boats submerged for days will be capable of wiping a whole navy off the face of the deep. Balloons and flying machines will carry telescopes of 100-mile vision with camera attachments, photographing an enemy within that radius. These photographs, as distinct and large as if taken from across the street, will be lowered to the commanding officer in charge of troops below. George McKinley Barrington of the state of Ontario was today at high noon invested with the office of the President of the United States of the Americas. The ceremonies attending the inauguration were the most elaborate in the history of this country and were made the more significant as being the first ceremony of this kind in the 21st century. Not less than $10 million was expended on the celebration, and more than 10 million people witnessed and participated in the exercises. President Barrington is the 10th Chief Magistrate to be elected to the new term of 8 years. The inaugural parade was 36 miles in length, and despite the fact that those participating were carried in aeroplanes, aerial autos, and other conveyances from the Mansion of Executives to the Capitol, the line occupied more than 3 hours in passing the state aerial trains and slightly delayed the program as originally proposed. The state aerial trains left the Mansion of Executives at 9 o'clock and was stationed at the head of the Avenue of the Americas, down which, at an altitude of around 300 feet from the pavement, the parade approached. With President Barrington in the airship were Vice President Harris, ex-President Brown, and ex-Vice President Thompson. Mr. Sterling, Secretary of State for the Philippines, was unable to attend owing to a severe hurricane on the Pacific, which blew his aerial trains from their course and compelled him to make the trip via Cape Horn with great delay. Every city in the Union was represented in the parade by one or more conveyances, and the decorations were unique and beautiful. Among the finer displays were those of clubs from Sitka, Santiago de Chile, Montreal, Rio de Janeiro, Mexico City, Havana, Manila, Honolulu, Quebec, St. Thomas, Chicago, and New York. Detachments from forts all over the country occupied the war machines, which made a brilliant spectacle as they swept past the airship. The new 30-inch gun was in evidence on many of the war machines, and during a drill later in the day, a shell was thrown into the Chesapeake Bay outside Baltimore. At the new capital, the scene was one of activity. From early in the morning until the noon hour, the crowds had accumulated until nearly 500,000 people had been packed into the great glass-covered arena which fronts the east facade of the new Capitol building. From the Department of Transportation on the right to the Department of the Press on the left was a solid line of spectators which taxed the enormous crystal auditorium to its utmost capacity. 4 great automatic bands were placed in the corners of the space and, operated by buttons, simultaneously rendered a program of popular music. Then, headed by the president's conveyance, the procession returned over the Avenue of the States to the Capitol. As the president passed over each of the state arches, he was saluted by a volley of electrical bombs, the number of shots designating the order in which each state was admitted into the Union. It was a distinguished throng, the 40 members of the present cabinet, the Supreme and Vice Supreme Courts, the 313 senators and 860 representatives being present. Secretary Garner of the Department of Telegraphs and Cables was the first to greet Mr. Barrington and presented him with messages from the Congress of the British Republic, President of the United States of Germany, King Louis XXI of France, President Arcoli of the Republic of Italy, and the President of the Republic of Spain and Portugal. No word was received from Russia, owing to the recent death of the Tsar. As the candidate of the American Party and the choice of all three houses of Congress, Mr. Barrington is very popular. His speech was remarkable for its brevity, and yet for the numerous recommendations made. Among these is the suggestion that the work of turning the Arctic Current aside off the coast of Labrador so as to enable the Gulf Stream to change the climate be begun at once, and that the antitrust law prohibiting any corporation from making profits in excess of 6% per year be strictly enforced. Later, at 16 o'clock and lasting until 18 o'clock, an old century parade was made and created much merriment. In this grotesque line were ancient vehicles known as automobiles, locomobiles, and glides. Other features were bicycles from the Museum of the Americas and an electric streetcar from the New York State Museum. All in all, the celebration is worthy of the new century and will make a striking comparison with the inauguration of March 4th, 1901, an account of which is reproduced elsewhere in this issue. The life of the bee will be the life of our race, says Nikola Tesla, world-famous scientist. A new sex order is coming, with the female as superior. You will communicate instantly by simple vest pocket equipment. Aircraft will travel the skies unmanned, driven and guided by radio. Enormous power will be transmitted great distances without wires. Earthquakes will become more and more frequent. Temperate zones will turn frigid or torrid. And some of these awe-inspiring developments, says Tesla, are not so very far off. At 68 years of age, Nikola Tesla sits quietly in his study, reviewing the world that he has helped to change, foreseeing other changes that must come in the onward stride of the human race. He's a tall, thin, ascetic man who wears somber clothes and looks out at life with steady, deep-set eyes. In the midst of luxury, he lives meagerly, selecting his diet with precision almost extreme. He abstains from all beverages save water and milk, and has never indulged in tobacco since early childhood. He's an engineer, an inventor, and above these, as well as basic to them, a philosopher. And despite his obsession with the practical application of what a gifted mind may learn in books, he has never removed his gaze from the drama of life. From the inception of the wireless system, he says, I saw that this new art of applied electricity would be of greater benefit to the human race than any other scientific discovery, for it virtually eliminates distance. The majority of the ills from which humanity suffers are due to the immense extent of the terrestrial globe and the inability of individuals and nations to come into close contact. Wireless will achieve the closer contact through transmission of intelligence, transport of our bodies and materials, and conveyance of energy. When wireless is perfectly applied, the whole Earth will be converted into a huge brain, which in fact it is, all things being particles of a real and rhythmic whole. We shall be able to communicate with one another instantly, irrespective of distance. Not only this, but through television and telephony, we shall see and hear one another as perfectly as though we were face to face, despite intervening distances of thousands of miles. and the instruments through which we will be able to do this will be amazingly simple compared to our present telephone. A man will be able to carry one in his vest pocket. Perhaps the most valuable application of wireless energy will be the propulsion of flying machines, which will carry no fuel and will be free from any limitations of the present airplanes and dirigibles. We shall ride from New York to Europe in a few hours. International boundaries will be largely obliterated, and a great step will be made towards the unification and harmonious existence of the various races inhabiting the globe. Wireless will not only make possible the supply of energy to region, however inaccessible, but it will be effective politically by harmonizing international interests. It will create understanding instead of differences. I foresee the development of the flying machine exceeding that of the automobile, and I expect Mr. Ford to make large contributions towards this progress. The problem of parking automobiles and furnishing separate roads for commercial and pleasure traffic will be solved. Belted parking towers will arise in our large cities, and the roads will be multiplied through sheer necessity, or finally rendered unnecessary when civilization exchanges wheels for wings. Mr. Tesla regards the emergence of woman as one of the most profound portents for the future. It is clear to any trained observer, he says, and even to the sociologically untrained, that a new attitude towards sex discrimination has come over the world through the centuries, receiving an abrupt stimulus just before and after the World War. This struggle of the human female towards sex equality will end in a new sex order, with the female as superior. The modern woman, who anticipates in merely superficial phenomena the advancement of her sex, is but a surface system of something deeper and more potent fermenting in the bosom of the race. It is not in the shallow physical imitation of men that women will assert first their equality and later their superiority, but in the awakening of the intellect of women. Through countless generations, from the very beginning, the social subservience of women resulted naturally in the partial atrophy, or at least the hereditary suspension of mental qualities which we now know the female sex to be endowed with no less than men. The female mind has demonstrated a capacity for all the mental acquirements and achievements of men, and as generations ensue, that capacity will be expanded. The average woman will be as well educated as the average man, and then better educated, for the dormant faculties of her brain will be stimulated to an activity that will be all the more intense and powerful because of centuries of repose. Women will ignore precedent and startle civilization with their progress. The acquisition of new fields of endeavor by women, their gradual usurpation of leadership, will dull and finally dissipate feminine sensibilities, will choke the maternal instinct, so that marriage and motherhood may become abhorrent, and human civilization draw closer and closer to the perfect civilization of the bee. The vast, desexualized armies of workers whose sole aim and happiness in life is hard work. It is the perfection of communism, of socialized cooperative life wherein all things, including the young, are the property and concern of all. Old men have dreamed dreams, and young men have seen visions from the beginning of time. We of today can only sit and wonder when a scientist has his say.